Good morning and happy Friday. It is the week before Thanksgiving, and I am really excited to be here with you to talk about communicating myofunctional therapy for clarity and accuracy because you're going to find out there's some things that people say that really grind my gears, and we're going to get the record straight. First, I want to welcome you all. Thank you for being here. And so there's a really nice welcome. Um, what I really would like though is if you're watching and if you can see me and you can hear me, just throw a hello into the comments or just like I could see you, I could hear you. That way I know I'm not talking into a void and we can move forward. Hey, Roxanne. Okay, wonderful. I always leave this slide up here because, we want to keep this thing going. I go live every week with free education about myofunctional therapy to help you be better or start better into the field. So subscribe. That way you don't miss a single one. Turn on your notifications so you get the alerts when they're coming up. If you're on LinkedIn, connect with me. If you are on YouTube, follow, subscribe, and make sure you comment. The comments actually help increase the reach. That way more people can get the education that they need. But let's dive in because we've got a lot to get through today, okay? So, hey, Dawn, so good to see you here. Okay, we have so much information at our fingertips. Everybody, I don't know how you're watching this, but everybody has at least one smart device. You're probably watching this on a computer or on your phone. And so you've got something smart in front of you. And what does a smart device mean? It means that you have the world at your fingertips. You can do research in seconds. It depends on how fast you type, but you really can access a bunch of information. Now, some of it is going to be misinformation and some of it is going to be right information. How do you discern between the two? How does the public discern between the two? How does myofunctional therapy get conveyed in a way that is going to accurately really put forward its value? It's all about what you say, and how you say matters, and what you put out there matters. And so you may find that there are some things that really grind my gears. And there are some people who may have gotten some messages from me that's like, please stop saying this, because it's not putting the field out in the correct light, or it's just shedding a different type of perspective that we don't want out there. Okay. So there's a couple of gray areas we're going to get into today. Some of them have to do with communication. Some of them are just things that really grind my gears. If you're not a Family Guy fan, you might not get this reference, but Peter Griffin, who is the main character of the Family Guy show, he did this one little segment. And you know what really grinds my gears? And he just talks about things that irritate him. And so that's how I just relate to this. So these are some things in the gray areas. Now, I really love a good gray area just in life in general. I don't believe in black and white. There's so much beauty and value in having a gray area. I don't think, though, that when it comes to your professional standing, especially when we're all licensed professionals in healthcare, that there should be gray areas. I think we need to stick to the black and the white, like it either is or it isn't. And so that's where we're going today. We're going to kind of cut out some of the gray and just stick to what's right, what's true, and jump into a bunch of these different areas. So you may notice physical therapy's up there first. And you're going to say, does it really matter? Like, does it really matter what we say, or like how exactly we're comparing myofunctional therapy? Yes, it's not physical therapy. So does it matter what we're calling it and why we say it, however we say it? Absolutely. It really, really does matter. What you say matters in a lot of capacities. One, because you have to consider what's on the line. You have a lot on the line. You have your license. There's so many people who have made incorrect statements about what they do or have presented myofunctional therapy in a way that has caused conflict, right? Now, I'm not saying that everybody who's gotten any sort of issues around their licensure or board complaints or board reports or whatever, that's all valid. Most of it probably is not. But there are some that, it's the way you're presenting it that's creating that falsehood. And so what's on the line? Your license. We all work really hard for our licensure. It doesn't make sense that this one little field that is uh, I've got so much to say about this field. It doesn't make sense that this one field is what's going to be bringing down years of education, what you actually got your degree in, like all of your board exams, all of your hard work to get to where you got in your career with your licensure, that should be on the line because of what you say. So what you say absolutely matters. Your credibility and who you are as a person absolutely matters. I think my reputation matters more than most things in life. I want my word to be credible for most people. And when I explain something, I would like that to be the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth. But if that's not the way that you would like to lead yourself, I don't know. I think that's a different type of issue with ethics and so forth, but your credibility is always on the line every time you misrepresent this field, anytime you miscommunicate what it is, what it does, how it works. That's absolutely something that's going to put your credibility on the line, particularly when you're networking. If you're networking and you're trying to connect with new providers, you have to lead with credibility. You have to lead in a place where they can trust, because if I'm going to send you my patients, if I'm going to send you the people who are helping me to support my business, to support my family, to support whatever, this is now going to be a very, very precious resource that I am sharing with you. And so if you have a referring provider who's going to be sharing something with you, they have to be able to trust you. Your credibility is absolutely on the line. So what you say matters for that. Your closing rate, and your future like referral rate. So how you interact with prospective clients and how you interact with clients throughout your treatment. What you say matters to them the most. They are investing in whatever it is you're telling them. And so if you are miscommunicating it, over time, that's going to affect and impact your closing rate, especially when you're not really conveying. We'll get into this a little bit with the physical therapy, but when you are not giving an accurate enough or a compelling enough analogy or description of myofunctional therapy, that's absolutely going to annihilate your closing rate. And the closing rate matters, right? Because we all have bills to pay, families to support, mouths to feed in some way, shape, or form. And then the ability to start or scale your business is going to be impacted. And so I have a lot of meetings nowadays with people, and the last 2 meetings I had with hygienists were all about how to really get started in myofunctional therapy, because they've already taken a course, and then everybody gets trapped in this little period where you've taken a course and you're like, I don't know what to do with all this information. And so how you're able to get your jump start, how you're able to get your doctor on board, how you're able to get your family on board, your spouse on board, how you're able to get that support behind you to get started and or to scale and grow. Because the better you become at communicating, the better you are able to now network, to grow, to put out content and so forth. Okay. So there's a lot on the line. It does matter what you say, and how you say it matters. And so let's get into my biggest pet peeve. You know what really grinds my gears? When people say that myofunctional therapy is like physical therapy. It is not. It is not. And I wish I could just leave it at that. But physical therapy is something that I want everybody to start taking more seriously. Here's why. A physical therapist is nothing like a myofunctional therapist. There are some that do dual duty. There are absolutely some phenomenal physical therapists who have gotten invested into myofunctional therapy and have taken it very far. But even they will say it's not the same thing. It's like an aspect of certain things that they do, but it's not alike. So in most states, in the United States of America, in order to practice physical therapy, you need to be a doctor. You need to have a doctor of physical therapy degree. And this is a real like doctoral degree. There are plenty of people, physical therapists with masters. That used to be the standard. Now the standard is a doctoral degree. So you have to be well researched, well educated. You have to be licensed, okay, in order to practice. Like you have boards, they have a significant degree of work to get to where they have to get to. Now, that's not to say that the people who do Myo are not equally educated. Yeah, we have some PhD level people who do myofunctional therapy. We absolutely have some very, very intelligent people. But the fact that you got a PhD is not what got you into Myo. The fact that you have your license in a healthcare modality that's limited depending on who's teaching the course, because some people will teach anybody, but the fact that you have a license in a certain healthcare realm is what got you into your myofunctional therapy course. It's not necessarily your standard there. Okay. These aren't the same. Just know that they're not the same. The methodology is entirely different too, how they get about their goals, what exactly it is that they're doing, the elements of manual therapy that are involved in physical therapy. These are our anatomy and physiology gurus. These are the people who really, really get it. And most of them will tell you that they don't get enough education about the head, the neck, the TMJ. Like they don't do enough of that in their education, even at the doctoral level. Okay. And the public perception, entirely different too. How we get to physical therapy, I think it's just a lazy analogy. How we get to physical therapy for myofunctional therapy as a comparison is absolutely lazy. There's not much thought behind it other than, this sounds cool to say. It doesn't really relate. We're not equals. I know I'm smart. I am very intelligent. I am not a doctor of physical therapy. I am not remotely capable of being able to give physical therapy, but I can do some really, really great myofunctional therapy. So let's talk about also why it's not a great analogy. So it's not a great analogy because, I mean, who are the famous physical therapists that you know? Off the top of your head, I want you to think about a famous physical therapist that you know, like really prominent. Somebody says physical therapy, immediately this comes to mind. And I will wait a second and I will let that settle in, because I guarantee you now, if I ask you the same thing about a personal trainer, which is a better analogy, that many of you will have front of mind a physical therapist. I'm sorry, not a physical therapist, a personal trainer that you can think of front of mind. The public perception is entirely different. When we think about physical therapy, most of us don't have an image in our head of what that is. Some people have never even done physical therapy for themselves. They don't understand fully what's all involved. Most often, you're given a direction to get physical therapy by a physician. So the physician says that you need physical therapy. They are given that. The physical therapist works on a very limited, like, this is what we're working on as per your physician, and it's a limited time frame, insurance covers, and so forth. Like, that's the timeline that goes through my head when I think of physical therapy. In the times that I've had physical therapy in the past, it was a way to avoid surgery or after a certain event happened and I had a certain injury, and then we're working on a specific goal, and there are very clear steps that are involved. You don't go out and just pursue physical therapy just on your own. You can, but for most people, you're not going out and just like, hey, I want physical therapy, right? Whereas with myofunctional therapy, it's an entirely different conversation. Yeah, your doctor can tell you about it, but you could also just happen upon a myofunctional therapist. You can have a conversation with a myofunctional therapist. Most of us are not accepting insurance. Most of us are going to be fee for service. And so you understand that just like personal training, it's a decision, it's a choice that you can make, right? We'll get more into that for a second. It's a decision, it's a choice you can make. Personal training. You think about a personal trainer, it just makes more sense because personal trainer is like a guide. A personal trainer has the body most often that you want. Your personal trainer knows how to get you to get to where you need to be. They're going to create a custom plan. And I say this all the time with personal training whenever I do this analogy. I have terrible. I have really good core. You wouldn't know it by looking at me. Okay. I could do a plank probably longer than most of you. I've got really good core and I've got really good biceps. My triceps are terrible. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. You can't get me to push back anything. Oh my gosh. It's horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. Who would know that? Not the YouTuber that I might go online and like try to do some exercises with, right? It would have to be a personal trainer who's working with me, who's looking at my muscle function and structure and seeing me make mistakes as I'm doing certain exercises and guiding me to the right path and like making sure my form is good and yada, yada, yada. That's what we do with myofunctional therapy. We're looking at their muscles. We're looking at what's happening. We're looking at, okay, here's what we need to work on. Here's where we need to get you to be of optimal health. I mean, I think most personal trainers are really looking out to be your health and wellness guides, but you're looking at somebody who's going to create a custom plan and be your guide, not somebody who's going to work out for you. Not to say that physical therapists do that, they don't, but not somebody who's going to look at you and say, okay, we're just going to focus on this limited thing. We're going to look at the whole picture and we're going to make a custom plan. Okay. Let's go back to my famous PTs. If you did think of Bob and Brad, you are much better than 80% of the world. I had to Google because I don't know any famous PTs. I couldn't think of any at all. And when I Googled famous PTs, the only people that came up is Bob and Brad. I don't even know what Bob and Brad's last name are, but Bob and Brad have 5 million followers on YouTube. And so awesome. They're fantastic. They're bigger than some other people that I follow on YouTube. Bob and Brad are doing really great. Bob and Brad have lots of products. Bob and Brad do something. I don't know what they do, but they're physical therapists. Okay. They're the most famous ones out there. There's not a list. Now, historically, are there lists? Just like, you might look at Irene Newman for dental hygiene. Absolutely. Esther Wilkins. Absolutely. But Bob and Brad are it for physical therapists. And I know there's going to be a physical therapist who's going to be like, there's some other famous ones. No, not like Kardashian level famous, which is what you would think of when you think of famous personal trainers like Shaun T25, Jillian Michaels, or Gunnar Peterson, when you're thinking about, television shows and celebrities and people who they've been able to help, Biggest Loser and so forth. Tracy Anderson, super popular Tracy Anderson. I think she's got more followers than the other three combined. It's wild. These personal trainers, I mean, there's no end to the list, honestly. You can keep going with personal trainers. Lou Ferrigno, who was a very popular athlete, very popular actor, but also very big in fitness and personal training and bodybuilding and all these people. When you think of these programs, and even some of you might be thinking of your trainers that you have with different types of technology. So when you have the bikes, the Peloton bikes, and your people who are your famous trainers on your bikes, your Peloton bikes, or if you have a tonal machine and there's trainers on your tonal machine, there's personal training all throughout. Why on earth would you keep comparing to physical therapy when nobody has a intentional reference for physical therapy when you have personal training as an option, of an alternate description for what it is that we do? And it's easy to bring the reference. It's easy to look at you now as the guide for them. It's easy to build in that accountability. I could pay a personal trainer. I could pay a personal trainer $100,000. And if I do no work, I'm not going to get any better. I'm not going to get any better. It has nothing to do with how much I pay them, right? So it's not about the money. It's about building in that accountability. Your personal trainer is your accountability. My physical therapist is certainly my accountability when I'm in the physical therapy office, and I might do some of the exercises that they tell me to do in between, but I'm not really there of my free will and my own volition. I'm there because my doctor told me to be, and because I have to do certain things in order to get clearance for that or the other thing, whatever. Whereas personal training is more of like a personal commitment. So you're making that commitment. You know where you're trying to get to. You know what the goal is. It's just a better analogy. Let's not be lazy with our analogies anymore. Please stop calling it physical therapy. And then the other thing behind that is that there's been some issues where there are people claiming that it's like physical therapy. So are you practicing physical therapy? Because you know that that's out of licensure. And so now here comes your board complaint because you are practicing physical therapy without a license. But can you practice personal training without a license? Yes, literally everybody does. Okay. There's no license for personal training. It's not a thing. And so if we're going to talk about things that aren't a thing, myofunctional therapy falls in line. It's just a better analogy. So just think it through more before you start regurgitating that terrible information. It is not like physical therapy. Okay. I'm going to move on to the next thing that really grinds my gears: muscle tone. Every time somebody says myofunctional therapy works with muscle tone. Now, when you Google, because I really wanted to Google this so bad, when you Google, can myofunctional therapy help with muscle tone? Google says yes. Gemini technically says yes, absolutely. Myofunctional therapy does help with muscle tone. When you Google, do personal trainers help with muscle tone? It says yes, absolutely. Okay, where are the references? And there's no references underneath it. Like Gemini will very quickly tell you personal trainers work with muscle tone, myofunctional therapists work with muscle tone. Zero references. And any of the articles you try to look at underneath that are talking about something entirely different, about muscle strength, not muscle tone. I really don't like us talking about muscle tone in myofunctional therapy because it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's out of scope. It's something that you would work on in physical therapy, something you could work on in occupational therapy. It's really in the purview of another profession. And there's so much that goes along with that, at least on a global scale. Like for us to be talking about fine motor movements and muscle tone when there's like people who have global hypotonia or difficulty with their muscle tone globally, and it's going to affect their posture, it's going to affect their stability, their balance, and so forth. We're not dealing with that. Okay. We're not dealing with that. We're dealing with the muscles in a certain degree, but we're really not looking at the tension levels. We're not measuring any of that, to be totally honest. We're looking at overdevelopment, underdevelopment within normal limits, but we're not really looking at the tension of these muscles at rest. Okay. We're not looking at their whole chain involvement with the rest of the body. Like we're not looking at that. We're not working on that. I really would prefer you just use muscle strength. Like I said, there you go, OT and PT's lane. There's a lot more involved, and there's so many different causes of poor muscle tone and so many other reasons why they may have issues that are very similar to oral myofunctional disorders, or issues that are oral myofunctional disorders due to having hypotonia. And so if you're going to deal with muscle tone, deal with muscle tone. I've had a whole doctor try to argue with me with this while I was on stage presenting. And I'm like, don't use muscle tone when you're describing what your myofunctional therapist is going to do for your patient. And they're like, well, why? Isn't that what you do? No, that's not what I do. That's actually what OTs do, what PTs do. And that's in their lane. And I don't want any problems. And they're like, well, that sounds like a whole separate issue. It doesn't sound like you don't deal with muscle tone. Okay, well, next time you see somebody that's got myasthenia gravis, or that's got, some sort of genetic predisposition to hypotonia, I want you to send them to your myofunctional therapist and then ask them to work on the muscle tone. It's like, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. There's just a lot more that can be involved when we're actually talking about low muscle tone. We're not talking about it from our fine motor, poor little window of where we're looking at. We're talking about it from a gross motor scale, like their global mobility and their motor planning. And these are not the same thing. Just say that you work with the muscles and you do strength and so forth. There's nothing that I can find that will back you up in any way, shape, or form that you work with muscle tone. No research, no well-written, peer-reviewed, published article that says you work with muscle tone as a myofunctional therapist. And there certainly isn't one for personal training. And trust me, I looked. I did the research, okay? So it just makes more sense that we're working on muscle strength and we're really working on helping to develop in the same way that you would with a personal trainer. They don't work with muscle tone. We don't work with muscle tone. We do work with muscle strength and engagement. And so we can do that. Let's do that in our limited purview window and let the experts with collaborative treatment where we need to work on the rest of actual muscle tone. Okay. Let's just knock that out of our vocabulary right now. Okay. And please, if you see me on stage, don't argue with me about this. I don't want to argue when I'm on the stage. I just want to educate. I don't think that's too much to ask. Okay. I love this little meme. It killed me. I was dying laughing when I found it. Okay. Can we stop saying that myofunctional therapy is research and evidence-based? Like, oh, we got so much research. We got a library of research. There's a whole study group where there's been a collection of the research. Y'all are full of it. Y'all are full of it. You know very well that this is not an evidence-based field. This is an eminence-based field. It is at its very best, like the very best pseudoscience. Okay. But that's not a bad thing, y'all. Chiropractic care is considered pseudoscience. Like, I mean, we're not in bad company. There's a lot of really great things that aren't as proven as of yet. Now, if you really want to dive into it, I've got a really great lecture that I did. And this lecture was on my YouTube. Let me get my link. I'm going to post it also in the comments if I can. You might see the comments if you're watching me on YouTube. You're probably not going to see my comment with the link for it if you're watching me on LinkedIn, but it's there. Okay. So it's there on the bottom of the screen. Okay. So here we go. Let's get this off of the screen now. And let's get into like myofunctional therapy as eminence-based. If you didn't get to watch that lecture, I put it all out there for you, okay? Myofunctional therapy, especially the way we do it in America, there are now over 20. I think when I did my lecture, I was like, oh, there's 17 intro courses. There's actually over 20 introductory courses. None of those introductory courses are held to a similar standard. We don't have an accrediting body. We don't have any standardized version of care, and we don't need one. That's coming later. And we don't have any standardized version of care. And all the research is based on different methodologies, many of which aren't really present in some of the courses. What exactly are you referencing when you reference back to research? Stop saying that it's evidence-based. Stop saying that there's research. Stop saying, whatever. It's not an issue to be eminence-based. To be eminence-based means that we see changes. We see results. I am a Reiki master. I love Reiki. I actually charge more for Reiki than I do for myofunctional therapy. And in my opinion, just on like a mental workflow, I do significantly less when I do Reiki, but I get more of an outcome in working on the energy. Now, what research can I show you that the energy is in the body and that the energy is going to help and that it's going to facilitate and going to be a conduit of this energy, and that this energy is going to move from me as the conduit into the person that I'm working with, and it's going to help to clear them out, and it's going to help to lower their blood pressure, and it's going to help to, relieve stress, and it's going to bring them to a higher plane, and we can clear their chakras. I have no research. And that's okay. You think that's ever stopped anybody from doing Reiki? You think that's ever stopped somebody from doing sound baths? You think that's ever stopped a Kardashian from doing any of the random stuff that you see them doing whenever you watch their shows? Like, no, they've done face yoga, they've done all the things. No. There's no research to this stuff. Yoga doesn't have research. There's nothing to it. But people see a difference. People see a change. People experience things through doing these different modalities. And that is where eminence-based comes in. When you are communicating myofunctional therapy, it's good to say that, yeah, there's some research on myofunctional therapy. Absolutely. That research doesn't look like what I did. It doesn't look like what I do day to day, because even when we go into the systematic reviews that are absolute nonsense, because you're not systematically reviewing anything, you're actually like looking at a bunch of different methods and techniques, and you're not really looking for similarities in the myo, but whatever, you can go back and watch that later. When you're looking at it, you can't replicate those results, because what you do in your myofunctional therapy program is not the same. And then some of them that are like 7 to 10 exercises that they have patients repeat for 3 to 5 times a day or whatever, that's not what you're asking them to do. Now, if that is what you're asking them to do, kudos to you. You have research. You might be evidence-based. But the rest of us who are doing actual myofunctional therapy, we're practicing pseudoscience. And that's okay. Okay, that's okay. Please start to get okay with that. You don't have to send research to everybody you're trying to network with. And there's going to be a bunch of people who are like, your research is nonsense. And the sooner you get to a place where you're like, I agree, it is total nonsense, it's absolute garbage, and I can only tell you what I've seen and experienced based on how I run my program. So can we sit down and go over some of my case studies? Can we go over some of my testimonials? I have videos, I have things, and we can go over all of this, and I can tell you why I think we got to where we got to. Awesome. I can have a much better discussion with somebody than trying to fight with them saying that, oh, it's research-based. It's not. It's not. It is not. Get over it. Now, somebody's going to tell me, oh, but all the stuff that's coming out of Brazil. In Brazil, if you're a speech language pathologist and you graduate from one of their programs where they are teaching it in the higher education, absolutely, it is in the college-based system. It's a university. They're getting it as wonderful post-secondary education, graduate level education. They're getting it there as a standardized practice. That is wonderful for those people in Brazil. You are not in Brazil, boo-boo. You're not. And most of the people who create that argument with me are not speech therapists. And so, like, I don't even know what we're talking about, because it's not something that even if you were in Brazil, you'd be able to do. So I really don't know what that argument's about. And I would just prefer you just as honest as you can possibly be. It just makes more sense. Just be honest. Just let people know. This isn't a thing. It's not a real thing. Just like Reiki isn't, just like yoga isn't, just like breath work isn't, just like chiropractic care isn't. Really go back and look at the research on some of the things that are very, very household names. Chiropractor, any household in America can tell you what it is. And most people can't tell you that it's eminence-based, but that's what it is. It's eminence-based. Look at the research and go back and, just really understand what it is that you're reading before you try to send it off to somebody, what it is that were the protocols and the standards that made that research get the results that it did, and then share, but share from a place of honesty. Okay, it's research. This particular study did these 3 exercises. here's why we need significantly more, and here's why I think I can probably achieve more because of da, 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 da. Be better, okay? Be better. Next thing that really grinds my gears, oh my gosh, some people who describe it as just some simple exercises like myofunctional therapy. It's just some simple exercises that, is going to help you to strengthen and, what? It's just some simple exercises. Like, is that what y'all are doing? Or maybe you guys are a part of the research studies where they do 7 to 10 simple exercises and have them repeat those again and again for months on end. Sure, then it's some simple exercises. But a real myofunctional therapy program, please, please, please stop communicating it as some simple exercises. It just doesn't work like that in no way, shape, or form. Nobody's just doing some simple exercises. People, I hope, are doing real neuromuscular re-education. That's what I was taught. That's what I teach. That's what I hear other people are teaching. And so where you get simple exercises from neuromuscular re-education, I don't know. Because neuromuscular patterns are really sequences that happen because of repetition. And so you want to make habitual changes that are going to last a lifetime, you need this neuromuscular conditioning. You have to get the repetition done, and you have to grade it and stage it, and they have to be willing participants in this. Like, they have to get some of that conscious awareness and conscious change to translate to subconscious. Okay, these neuromuscular patterns don't just happen through a few simple exercises. I could do bicep curls every single day. That's not going to change the way I write. Okay, it's just not. I'm looking to create a change on a different level than just some simple exercises can do, which is my biggest problem with mewing. Like, if you want to dumb down myofunctional therapy to really just suction and suction holds or some jaw exercises, sure, dumb it down to just that. But I guarantee you're going to wind up with bigger problems in the long run. And I've seen it time and time again. It is not just simple exercises. Okay. Here's what makes more sense. It's a phased system. There's levels to this, right? Phase 1, we're creating balance. So where there is asymmetry in the musculature, overdevelopment, underdevelopment, it may start out as simple exercises to try to balance out all of that and to establish optimal range and to really get to a point where we're disassociating and so forth. So we're creating that balance, which is really our foundation, because then we need to get to coordinating musculature. Here's where the magic happens with neuromuscular re-education. Those simple exercises have graduated on it to activities. Now we're creating collaborative tasks for muscles where we can now start to eliminate any of the compensatory patterns that are happening. And so now we're coordinating muscles and we're getting things to work together, and we're doing active tasks that require multiple steps. So it's not just, a repetition of a particular exercise. Now we're on a functional task. We're doing an activity. So this activity, awesome, absolutely wonderful. But these activities don't correlate with your normal life. Like, nobody is swallowing with, a rubber band on spot when they're out to eat at dinner. That's just not what happens. So we have to get to the next level, habituation. And I am so sorry for you if you were not taught this in your initial course. But those of you who this is like a total review, or you're just nodding your head like, yes, please understand that I've spoken to many people who are so lost because they just don't understand that you have to get to that third step, that habituation phase, where now we're integrating it into their daily life so that when they are functioning on a daily level, breathing, eating, speaking, doing whatever, that they're able to do so with these new neuromuscular patterns repetitiously in their daily life, because that is the magic. That's where the change happens, the habituation. I don't want you to need your myofunctional therapist. There's so many people who will use their myofunctional therapist as a crutch because they need the crutch. We are the first people who sometimes have listened to them, who have understood their concerns, who have gotten it. We get what's happening. We understand what's happening with them, and they feel connected to us. Great. I love that. I love my people who I work with so very much, but I want you to wean yourself off of me. Okay. We are here just to get you to a place where you can manage this on your own. I want you to have autonomy of your care. I want you to be a whole person who does not need me in order to facilitate this neuromuscular pattern in your daily life. Okay. So it's got to be phased and staged. And so what starts out as maybe some simple exercises, I hate that. It turns into activities, and then that turns into daily life integration, and that's where the magic happens. And so if you're just doing some simple exercises and you're wondering why you can't get to habituation, it's probably because you skipped the step somewhere along the way. Okay. And you just have to understand it's not just simple exercises. It's really, really not. All right. Oof. This one really can grind my gears too, because I think so many people feel like it's the answer to everything. And then I wind up getting some people who are working with me as their second therapist. And I don't like that. I don't want to be anybody's second therapist. You should have done super awesome with your first therapist, that you don't really need me. But there are some people who are claiming that they've finished myofunctional therapy programs and they didn't get the answer to grinding. They thought that it was going to eliminate their grinding. It was going to completely change their digestive patterns. It was going to completely revolutionize their whole orthodontic process. Like, they were going to have everything just changed overnight. The people who expect these miraculous things to happen when they have tongue tie releases are often really disappointed. Tongue tie release is a cosmetic procedure. It is removing or altering a frenum. The function does not happen in the release. That is an aesthetic change. The function happens in all the work you've done before with a myofunctional therapist, all the work you do after with myofunctional therapists, and some of the work that you do with your manual therapist. That way we can really get the gains in the myo. But myofunctional therapy has never been the answer to anything other than proper oral rest posture. Everything else is a happy accident. And the more you start being honest with people and telling them this and being as upfront as possible about it, the better you will feel. Okay. That's what I tell everybody. That's my goal. I'm looking for proper oral rest posture. We're going to habituate proper oral rest posture. That is all. That is all. I don't have conversations about OMDs anymore. I don't have a conversation about anything. We have a lot of happy accidents that happen as a result of doing myofunctional therapy. And I really would love it if you would start saying happy accidents, because happy accidents are exactly what it is. When you're working with the oral facial musculature, you're not really intentionally trying to do anything. You're not trying to resolve their TMD. You're not trying to eliminate their parafunctional habits. You're trying to get them to a baseline where they can maintain and sustain proper oral rest posture. Let that be it. Let that be it. Okay? I'm not over here struggling for patients. Like, I tell everybody, before you even get to meet me, you have to fill out my paperwork. When you fill out my paperwork, the very first thing is informed consent. And I've had a couple of doctors and a PT as patients who have asked me, like, why do we have to fill this out, informed consent? I don't even know if I'm going to work with you, because I need you to understand, before you even meet me, that all I am working on is proper oral rest posture, and that the rest is a happy accident. So if there's something else you're looking for, and this informed consent was what turned you off, then you can find somebody else to lie to you. It's not going to be me. It is not going to be me in any way, shape, or form. we are answering proper oral resting posture. Everything else would be a happy accident. And the way we get there is by going through that balance, coordination, habituation staircase. And then once we get there, oh, look, some other things may have been resolved. Maybe some other things weren't resolved. All I ever guaranteed you was proper oral resting posture. And that is what we're graduating upon. Okay. Reiki, and how I talked about Reiki earlier, I think it's really important to kind of come back to this. I love Reiki. I think it's really important. I would love it if everybody does it. Not all of my clients do it. There are some who really, really do invest in it, and it's super powerful. Again, I have no research to substantiate that claim of its power, but it is an absolutely wonderful modality. Now, when we look at what they claim, and I really would like it if everybody would just Google it yourself. What are the benefits of Reiki? You're going to see lots of things, whether it's, the blood pressure, pain relief, anxiety, it helps with depression. There are people who are struggling with their stress management and their cortisol levels who will say that Reiki helps. It's going to help them with the mood and the well-being and whatever. It can help with a lot of wonderful things. And that's all a happy accident. Your Reiki master, a true Reiki master, knows that one, we are not the reason why any of that is happening. There is autonomy in your own health with Reiki. And that's what I think needs to come into the Myo world a lot more. That autonomy, like you need to own that. You, as an independent person, you are achieving your own goals. Your myofunctional therapist is just there as like a conduit to help you, like a guide to help you. But with Reiki, I don't have to explain what the benefits are. Most people are coming looking for something particular, and we talk about how that may happen, it may not happen. The energy flows as it does, and it flows to where it will. Maybe we get improvement, maybe we don't. And when they do get improvement, they're excited. Keep that expectation nice and low, right? And if they don't get improvement, it's okay. The energy flowed where it flowed, and we'll try again the next time. But myofunctional therapy needs to be stated exactly as such. We have one common goal: proper oral resting posture. Everything else a happy accident. With Reiki, I'm just a conduit of some energy. I will allow myself to be removed. You own wherever the energy flows, and whatever your healing outcomes are, that's where we'll go. Okay. And so happy accidents happen all the time, accept it. And so it makes more sense that we don't say that it's the answer to a bunch of things, because it's really not. It's really, really not. More often than not, we're working in collaboration with a bunch of different other people. And we work on teams, and we are helping in dynamic ways. But there's also other elements that should go along in there. Like, it just makes more sense that we are just one cog in the wheel. We are not the wheel. We're not the thing. Okay. We are not all encompassing on the changes. And so let's stop saying that myofunctional therapy is the answer to a whole list of things, a whole slew of things, because it's not. It's the answer to proper oral resting posture. And everything else kind of happens as a part of a collaborative effort to get you on your wellness journey, or as a happy accident. Okay. Last but not least, these cookie cutter standards. Oh, I hate it. I was talking to somebody the other day who was like, oh yeah, I think one of the one of the teaching organizations, they do their standard routine, this cookie cutter program, so that we can have better research. Because if everybody's doing the same thing, then we have validated research. Okay, I get that. I understand that. Here's the problem with the whole research thing. Okay, is that's that limited percentage that's coming out through that one organization, and the rest, it's not. Like, please watch this. It's a really good watch. But the other part of it is that my inbox is full of people I had a shout out to Joy Lance really quick. She was a phenomenal roommate and just like an exceptional person. It was so good to get to know her. Last weekend, we were roommates at the Do Retreat. If you're not a member of Dental Entrepreneur Women, you should definitely check it out. It is the best thing that's ever happened to me in my life, and I am grateful for Joy. I looked at Joy at one moment in time and I said, Joy, does your phone go off as often as mine does? She's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I get text messages and I get messenger messages. I get things on Instagram all the time. Like people are constantly messaging me or they email me with questions. Does this happen to you? And she's like, no, at least not the way that you're describing it. And, I'm looking at my phone and I've got like 3 text messages I have to respond to, and I've got multiple messenger requests and things. And I'm like, okay, this is just my reality. I love helping, but it's just overwhelming at sometimes, especially when a good bit of those are from that same organization with that intention of like, well, what we suppose is an intention to standardize the way people are doing myo, that way we can get more research. Most of these inbox things are from people who are like, I'm on session 7 and I can't figure out how to get them to establish their tongue on spot. Like they just can't elevate the tongue. And I'm like, how did you get to 7 sessions and you have no idea? They've been working on swallowing exercises. That's really interesting because they haven't established tongue elevation. Oh, so you're just going by whatever like set book you have of exercises. Oh, okay, that's great. Okay, here's what you need to do. And so I find myself providing information where it's like, you guys took a whole course, paid thousands, I'm sure, for it, and have no idea how to, in any way, shape, or form, customize that program. That's wild. That is wild. Myofunctional therapy should not be cookie cutter. And I don't think anybody's communicating it as such, but it definitely should not be cookie cutter. Because everybody's different, right? Like, I'm different than you. You're different than someone else. Like, the people in my house are different, and 4 of them are genetically similar. I just don't understand how we can try to make everybody's dysfunction the same and follow the same cookie cutter program. That's just not how it works. Now, I am a big proponent for access to care. We need to have increased access to care. There are people who in no way, shape, or form will ever be able to afford myofunctional therapy. And so we should have some sort of cookie cutter, something available, publicly available in some way that anybody at any level could really afford and access myofunctional therapy on a plan like that. But to be a one-on-one therapy and like they're paying you for this one-on-one therapy and you have no idea how to personalize it to their unique situation, their personal overdevelopment, underdevelopment, muscular recruitments, compensation patterns, like you have no idea. Do you do evaluations? If you do evaluations, what are you evaluating if you're just going to give them the same plan? Am I the only one who's confused? I hope I'm not the only one that's confused. Because like it's just really weird. It just makes more sense that everybody is able to personalize treatment to who they need to. Let's just go back for a second to the personal training thing. I've got a really great core. You wouldn't know it from looking at me. Okay. I've got a really great core. Would a personal trainer need to really work on my core? Or should we work on the things that I'm not as proficient in? Like, should we work on my triceps and my glutes and my thighs? Like, should we work on the things that really need work, the things that I know were weaker, the things that I may have had a history of problems with in the past, the muscles that I may have strained or torn or whatever? Like, should we work on my deficits and not treat me like I am whoever else you saw right before me and whoever else you're about to see right after me. It should be a personalized plan because we're dealing with muscles, not muscle tone, but we're dealing with muscles. Okay. Just makes more sense for it to be personalized. So please establish personalized plans. If you don't know how to do that, it might be time for you to take another course or ask somebody for a refresher or send something into my inbox. I'll help you out. But really, it just makes more sense. Okay. So I thought this little snippet here, this little GIF with our president in there, is a very great way for us to round out this morning. I'm sorry, I'm already into the evening. That's wild. To round out this morning is that in the age of disinformation, credible information that people can trust is more important than ever. With a profound amount of information out there, particularly around myofunctional therapy, and most of it highly inaccurate and or just not. I'm sure the intentions weren't bad, but it's not the best of intentions to convey something in the way that it should be conveyed. In the age of information where a lot of people are getting disinformation, it's really important that you're accurate. What you say matters. And having people trust you is super important, super incredibly important. I'm going to roll through the comments really quick and see if I got any questions. Now would be a great time to throw in any questions. Nope, no questions. Hey, Jessica. Hey, Cindy. Hey, Heather, thank you guys for joining me today. I really appreciate you. I look forward to seeing you next week where we're talking about mindset, okay? Early next week. And then the one after that is going to be on consultations because I don't know what everybody's doing for the consult, but I will happily share what I do for mine and how it works for me. And maybe I'll share with you a little bit of that informed consent that I talked about earlier. But it was great to be here with you. Between now and Monday, I think Monday or Tuesday or something, I'm going live. I look forward to seeing you then. And let's have a fabulous weekend. And if I don't see you on the live next week because you're going away for Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. Bye, guys.